everyone, and welcome to Prickly Draws. This is the first episode in a series. Hopefully once a week I will sit down and draw for you a nice little picture. This is not real time, this is a pre-recording. I don't really go that fast. I will be editing out all the parts where I'm away from the keyboard for reasons. Right now I'm going to be drawing a little picture here of a barbarian character. I take my reference model character here, who is made of pipe cleaners. I like using pipe cleaner people because I find that you can get pipe cleaners into poses where things like a wooden mannequin definitely wouldn't work, and where a traditional action figure would be kind of limited. I like making a very dynamic pose, and in some cases, let's be honest, bones don't bend certain ways. I can get a number of different poses. With pipe cleaner people, I can get the pose I want that'll be nice and dynamic and stylized, much like the characters I draw. Right here I am outlining the character with a beautiful, nice little sketch lines. I learned in various different art schools, both high school and at the college level, how to plot out the character. Here I am plotting out the sword. I realized that I was using the same color as the body. Now when I do the body versus, say, an item or clothing, I usually use different colors. So in this case, I am using purple for the sword and blue for the body. If I'm doing a face, normally if it's a specific kind of face, like with a different kind of expression on it, I normally go with using like orange or something, so it's a contrast from the blue of the body. Right now I'm working on the ink work for the face. Since this is like an ad-lib character, there's no reference for what this character looks like. It's a brand new character. So he's going to have bushy eyebrows, he's going to have a semi-busted looking nose, dark eyes. This is going to be done in completely black and white with grayscale. Right now I'm working on the face, nose, where his cheeks are, the way his hair is going to flow. He's a barbarian character, so he's going to have the scraggly hair that goes all over the place. He's got the big angry mouth. Okay, right now I see a problem with my drawing. I got the abs, the upper abs are drawn incorrectly. Now, I didn't see this until after the video was already shot. So, you know what they say about hindsight. Hindsight is 20/20, so that's what we got here. So we just go with it. As Bob Ross once said, there are no mistakes. There are only happy accidents. So since this guy's an ad-lib, he's like a random ink. The other random inks I do, which are all just straight pen and paper, this guy is going to be just as he is. I do try to fix whatever I didn't get before. Right now I'm working on the sword, and I'm doing a bit of detail as I go. Normally I save detail for a detail layer, but in this case I wanted to get some of the details down. I'm using a pen tool, but I'm using a nib that I made myself. I'm using Corel Draw, Photo Paint, and not Adobe Photoshop. I've used Photo Paint since version 3. I'm using version 16 now. It shows you how loyal a customer I am there. The reason why I do is because I find that there are a lot more features with Corel than with Adobe. Right now, I'm using the Path tool to create the blade of the sword. Whenever I need a line that is straight, or if I need a specific curve, like I'm doing a shield or something, and it needs to look proper, I will use the Path tool, get the path out, and have it stroke to path. I'm using a nib that I made myself. Another reason why I like Corel over Adobe is that I'm able to set it to rotate. So the pen's nib is actually rotating on its own in a circular motion as I move. So it gives that nice, slightly jagged approach. One of the problems I had when I started to go digital was that I found that a lot of digital drawings were too clean, as opposed to when I would use traditional pen and ink. And I don't have the steadiest hand in the world. I would look at my work from going from pen and ink traditional to digital, and I would find that there was a huge difference between the two, and I didn't like that. So I learned how to make nibs a long time ago for things like certain textures, certain fill settings, and things like that. And I realized, hey, wait a minute, why don't I just make, I'm doing this for, things like making a wool texture or a wooden texture or a leaf pattern. Why don't I just make a pen tool? So I did that. I made a nib, and then I went into the calligraphy pen tool, and I just made a pen tool with that nib. It worked out fine. I got it to the right size that I like, and it works out fine. I have the same thing happen for a pencil tool. I have one for sketching out the lines. I go into a pencil tool. I leave the paintbrush for paint. Let the pen tool do the drawing. Here I am working on more detail, fixing what I did wrong with the abs. The upper ab, unfortunately, never gets fixed, but I tried doing like obliques and stuff, tried to get and then I realized very quickly on, this is a stylized character. The thing about stylized characters, you don't have to go super advanced realism on it. Just as long as you got what's supposed to be there, as opposed to what shouldn't be there. I see some artists who have obviously never studied anatomy, or they will have muscle groups that don't exist. They'll have vein pop where there are no veins. Like a bicep is made up of two main muscles, which is why it's called a bicep. Like a tricep, same thing, has 3 muscle groups. So why do you have 18 ripples coming from a bicep? Or you have massive multiple ripples coming from a shoulder when a shoulder is basically 3 muscle groups? If you want to see it all, uncut, uncensored, and in full detail, please consider donating to my Patreon. Patrons get all of it. They get the whole show. For $1, you can get full access, uncut, uncensored, to everything on my Patreon page. For $5, you can be a background character in an upcoming side quest episode. For $10, you can be a featured character and have lines and everything. So don't delay, donate today. Every dollar makes a difference. Okay, here I am doing the fur for the boots. I always think, it's not truly a barbarian character unless he has furry boots. Same with the furry pants. You gotta give him furry shorts, gotta give him furry boots. And, they don't have, these aren't bootlace laces, they're tied on. So he puts his boots on, they're kind of like wraps, yeah. Kind of like a boot wrap. Puts his foot down on a piece of skin, pulls it up, immediately starts tying around his leg, and pulls the excess down so it's nice and tight to his skin. And that's basically, for me, that's how I I think of the barbarian boot, that it's not a traditional boot, that this is basically skins. It's a series of skins that he's made. And once again, I'm putting in some little, you know, basic details while I'm working, because I'm going to do an outline layer. I'm going to do primary detail, secondary detail. I think I might even do tertiary detail. And the reason why I do that, I do an ink line, the main outline, the main ink line first. Because when I go and do details, I put everything in layers, and I don't want to accidentally end up erasing something that should be there. I do the main lines first, then I do the outline, then I do the details. I draw it big, that way when I reduce it for a comic book or even its own page, I will reduce it in size. That way any of the little jaggedy bits that are a little too jagged will be smoothed out. And it looks real nice. It allows your detail work to have that extra fine look to it. Gets rid of a lot of the anti-aliasing that I notice happens. It's like when people take a small image and they'll try to scale it up. And that really doesn't work. I'm almost done the boot. I'm just fixing the leg. I'm trying to get those muscles right. I think I got it, so now here I am working on that boot, trying to get the toes right. Now, to this day, my two major problems are hands and feet. Okay, my two main problems are hands and feet. I gotta practice those as often as possible. I used to do all my practicing in sketchbooks. And I would end up with like page after page of just eyes, noses, mouths, etc. It was getting very expensive because I had no room for character designs. I had no room for doing landscapes or anything like that. Just eyes, nose, and mouths. So I bought a whiteboard. And I would practice any of the stuff on a whiteboard. And anything that I wanted to keep, if it was a set of eyes that was nice, a face that was really beautiful, something like that, or just the full character. Sometimes I do the full character or a really cool item. I would then take a, Old Reliable, my favorite little digital camera I got there, and I would take a photograph of it. If it was really good, I would post it on my DA page, my DeviantArt page. Link is in the description below. And I would label it whiteboard art. And there's an entire section on DeviantArt which contains all my whiteboard art. Okay, here I am doing the main outline. Trying my hand at some of the heavier detail on the inside of the sword, getting that blood groove to look nice and deep. I have increased the size of the pen tool, so it will have a heavier line than the main outline. That way it'll stand out from the background. I always believed in the veritable line quality theorem. A lot of classic illustrators from a lot of my favorite old school comics, dating back even way before I was born, dating all the way back to the 30s or the 20s. I love some of that beautiful artwork. And they would go veritable line because it had to stand out from the backgrounds. I figured, hey, it worked for them. Why shouldn't I do it? That's another problem I have with modern comics and modern illustrations is everybody has this strange belief that it should all be the same line thickness. And leaving only the thin lines for like detail work or something like that. I think that's kind of strange. I tried doing that and it looks lacking. Whenever I don't do an outline, whenever I do everything the same line width, it looks somewhat lacking. And I'm having to do more work in the coloring and the shading and everything. I'm having to make up for these lost things that variable line width can fix. Okay, I do believe, yep, I'm done the outline now. And I'm now getting into, I've got the next layer, which is the heavy details layer, and I am now doing the hair. It's same pen tool, but now it's different, working with different thicknesses of line. I am mimicking how they would paint it all. I'm trying to less this, more that sort of way. I'm experimenting as I go. The reason why I do a lot of these, I used to do the random inks and now I'm doing just a illustration as I go to remind myself of where I've come from, where I'm going as an artist, and to try and improve the work because you're never really finished. When it comes to artistry, you're never really finished. We're always going to be a student. You're never going to be the whole idea of the master. No. Who's really a master artist? Until you've learned everything, until you've got your stuff down to a science, you're not really a master because we're always learning a new technique, a new way of doing something. See, I'm adding more darkness, more shading, more detail to the boots. But it's on its own layer. I've done the pants, now I'm doing a little more to the pants. Adding in some fur texture. These are some fuzzy, it's just some fuzzy skin he's got on there. Still more detail, getting the inside of that leg. Adding a little more and a little more. I like giving my characters larger heads than normal because it allows me to put more focus on the face. I like giving the faces more expression, big mouths, very expressive eyes, very expressive, distinctive features like a busted looking nose or a sloped brow. Like this guy here, he's more of a doer than a thinker, so he's obviously going to have more of a brow. His eyes are going to be less defined and more, to give him more of a, he's suspicious of everything. He doesn't trust anyone. Here I'm putting more detail into the muscle groups now. I think this is a secondary detail layer. Primaries being, of course, the hair, arm bands, the legs, and such. Now we're getting into the little bits here and there. I like to give my characters always give them something that has some personality to them. I love manga. Don't get me wrong, I love my manga, I love my anime. But the ones that really stand out to me are guys like Monkey Punch, Akira Toriyama, and they're like, Go Nagai is another one that I really love because they went their own way. They said, we're going to stand out from the crowd, whereas others stayed traditional manga. And these were artists who beat their own paths. And there were people saying, especially with Akira Toriyama, his own teacher said to him, you're never going to get anywhere drawing like that. And, well, he proved them wrong. Anyone who's a fan of Dragon Ball or any of those ones there, or if you're a fan of the Dragon Warrior series, that was actually the first of Toriyama's works because I love the Dragon Warrior series of games. And he did all the art for those. And you can see how he has influenced an entire generation of artists. Go Nagai, I love his Cutie Honey series and several others of those. And yes, I have seen Violence Jack, and for me, Violence Jack's a bit hit or miss because of the content and the stories, but hey, that's the thing. His characters have character, his stories have story. And that's another thing, that's what I love about Monkey Punch, is the Lupin the Third series especially. I love how, because the characters are non-traditional, they're inspired by European comics, you can have very stylized characters, very stylized features. I always feel there is always going to be room for the stylized character. As much as I would love to be a traditional artist who does high detail work, if I'm going to keep myself to a schedule, trying to get out comic after comic, I'm going to have to put my stuff to a science, get a little formula of where I can just bang the images out so I can bring them to you and get the stories out, because it doesn't take me a long time to come up with a story idea. For me, it's the art. Okay, now I'm working on a tonal layer. I'm trying to come up with a tonal layer. I think I'm bouncing between using a watercolor wash brush that I made, or should I go with a simulated Copic marker? Well, the Copic wasn't working the way I wanted, so I went with a simulated ink wash. Whenever I do my, Whenever I did any of my old school black and white ink work, I loved using wash. I didn't like using Copic. I would only use Copic for if it's in my sketchbook or something like that and I need to show somebody what I'm doing. Whereas if I'm doing a piece that's really nice and such for comics and I'm doing black and white, I normally use diluted inks and I use like a watercolor wash. So this is what I'm trying to simulate with this brush tool now. I'm using a paintbrush tool that I have worked on, and I add to it and I take away from it every now and again because I'm trying to make it simulate a wash. And now I'm adding the shadows. The highest of the highlights is of course going to be bare white, so right now I'm trying to add in it's because it's a I'm doing what's referred to as addition painting as opposed to a subtractive paint where you take away, you know, where you put in a heavy tone and you lighten it up. This is addition. So I'm adding darkness. And I'm saying, okay, I want it here, I want it there. Once I'm finished all the tones and the heavy shadows, I'm going to make a background for this. For this guy, and I'm going to put him in a background. This guy came along pretty well. This took, all in all, from beginning to end, including the times I had to get up off the keyboard, took about easily an hour. So I've cut the time in half using my video editing software because I don't think you want me rambling on for half an hour. And I'm, just enjoying looking at my own creative process once in a while. I like looking over these videos because it allows me to see what I need to work on, what I need to improve on, what I need to keep, what I need to lose, that sort of thing. One of my dreams is to make a career out of this, and make not just a career, but a living. I am very thankful to all my followers through DeviantArt, Line Webtoon, Twitter, and Facebook, and YouTube, etc. I gotta start making more videos because YouTube has demonetized me, because I only had a handful of them. So if I can bang off at least one of these a week, while still putting out at least 2 comics on Line Webtoon. Gath is a full series. I put out 1 comic of that. I start when it starts, I'm done when it's done, and I post it when it's done. I'm taking a small break away from Gath. I'm working on Barbie now. I think I have enough with the Barbie plot outline that I can actually start working on the stories. Get the storyboards going, and once the storyboards are going, I can work on the art. I already have the next side quest coming up with. I know some people were kind of disappointed with the last one being a 1-pager, but I think I'm going to do 4 pages from now on. 1 to 4, but 4 will be the maximum for any one story. And that, I think, was the problem with the last one. The last one would have been a 5-pager, so that last page sort of spilled over. Some people were not happy with that, so I'm going to keep it to 4-page. Here I am working on the background. As you can see, all these fills, the fill for the ground, that was one that I made myself. I make all my own stuff. This is another brush tool, a blur tool. These are for blending. Once again, a lot of tools that I made myself, because as much as I love Corel, there's a lot of software that they have, and it's very malleable. You can bend it and twist it for your needs. That's what I like about it. I like to make use of some of the effects. Here I am, the multitude of nibs that I've made. Right now I made the mountains very easily. It was just out of a big rectangle. And now I'm just dirtying them up with a sponge tool. I'm adding like a rocky texture to it. I used a nib that I made myself, sort of a jagged triangle nib, and put that on the eraser tool, and that's how I got the mountain tops, by just erasing from it. Once I'm done the basic texture for the mountains, I'm going to go in, I'm going to darken certain areas. So right here, yep, now I'm darkening certain areas so that they will stand out as individual mountain features. And keeping with the stylized look of the character, of our lead character, as you can see, the mountains are also going to be stylized. Because what's the use of having a stylized character if you're going to put him in a real-world setting? If you like this video, you want to see more of them, please donate to my Patreon page. Link in the description below. It's under the New Perspective Comics name. To see the latest side quests and all the past side quests, go to Line Webtoon. Link in the description below. Same with Gath Chronicles. I will be putting all the Barbie comics, censored version, on DA. Uncensored will be behind the paywall on Patreon. Hope you like this one. Prickly Draws. Link in the description below if you want to see the final work on my DA page. Okay, here I am looking over my thing, putting final little details, final little things, putting down the border, putting down the signature with the date on it. And here we are. It's done. Gonna do yep, and there he is. Hope you enjoyed yourselves. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.